Alright guys, so today I'm going to be going over a technique called dodging and burning, and there's a few ways to do it in Photoshop, and some people know the simplest way to do it, but I'm going to go into a few different techniques you can use with it, kind of the better way to do it rather than the way that everyone knows. A technique called light bleeding, and we're also going to be dodging and burning with color for added depth. So for our first image, I have a photo of sunrise at Mesa Arch. Before anything, as always, I'm going to do Command J, so I have a fresh layer to work on. And over here on our tools panel, we see the burn tool, and if you do Control click, you have a dodge tool and a sponge tool. So most people, what they have done, if they're not too into Photoshop, and it's actually what I did at first many months ago, were these tools, the dodge and burn tool. So the dodge tool, its purpose is to brighten things, and the burn tool is to darken things. It's a simple way to add contrast and depth to your photos, but when you use these tools, it's not really the best way to dodge and burn, and a lot of it will just cause your images to have like this kind of washed out look. So right now, let's say if I want to dodge the midtones, you can do midtones, shadows, or highlights. So you want to do 20%. So actually I'm going to put it up to like 50% just to show you guys like kind of what this does. So all of these light parts, let's just see if I want to brighten these up. And I'm going very rough over these. And it will brighten them up, will do a good job. And it's hard to say exactly why. Like that definitely helped big time. But for some reason, the more and more I dodge and burn with this tool over here, it wasn't as clean as the way I'm going to go over in a second. But just to show you the burn tool over here, midtones, same thing. Let's put the same opacity of that. If we wanted to darken our darker areas, it just kind of gives it, like right here, you can see it kind of has this bland, like washed out dark look rather than like a true dark, and it's just not the best way to do it. So I'm going to just delete this entire layer and from start kind of show you how I do this. So down here in the new layer, if you do Option click, the new layer options will pop up. And what I will do is I will make a new layer and I will put it to soft light blending mode, because this is the best way to have your dodging and burning come through super clean on your layer below it. And I will always check this, fill with soft light neutral color 50% gray. Click OK. So now this layer right here is neutral gray, as it said, and when let me set my colors to white and black really fast. So pretty much for right here, if we are white and black, if we put white onto this gray layer, it will brighten those areas. And if we put black onto this gray layer, it'll darken these areas. So to show you what the layer mask will look like with this, so we have a black brush right now at 50% opacity. We're just going to do this just for purposes of showing you what this does. I'm going to switch to a white brush. Alright, so look at this layer mask now. So down here you have the neutral gray, here you have your neutral gray, and then this is darker because we burned it with black, and this is a lighter gray because we dodged it with white. So this is kind of the basic concept of how dodging and burning works. For this right here, since I went over pretty rough with a 50% brush, this looks pretty rough, not that great. So again, I am going to delete that, but I just wanted to kind of go over how it works before I actually start doing it, and then once you see me do it, just really can enhance your image. So I'm going to do Option click for a new layer, soft light, fill with neutral color, and I normally will work with 15, or maybe 10 to 20% opacity. So for this, we are going to do 18% opacity. So to add the most depth and contrast, how it should be, I'm going to use a white brush, and I'm going to try to just target the light areas where the sun is hitting it. So I'm actually going to zoom in, and I'm just going to try to get these areas down here. That's too much, so I'm actually going to drop this to a 10% brush. And you can kind of go over a whole area with a big brush like this, but it makes your shadows look really bad. So I'm gonna undo that, and when you really spend your time and just kind of get the areas that already have light and nothing but that, you can really get in here. And like the edges, you can be super fine and exact with this. And the more time you spend on this, the better it's going to look. Like right here, if I'm going in and getting every single little ridge and little bit of light that's getting touched. And then on a bigger brush, I can do like one pass over these lighter areas just to kind of highlight the overall ambient light. But then on these areas that are getting touched directly by the sun, I really want those to shine, so that's why I'm doing a few passes over them. And over here, just get some ambient light. Some ambient light in these lighter areas, just to kind of add to the image. And right away, I'll do before and after. And zoom out, before, after. So just really kind of add some depth to your image. And right here, I'm just gonna kind of a general light in this area with a few passes. You can do exact and get each of these sun rays, but I think they're already kind of speaking for themselves. And get this kind of sun flare here, one quick pass, and that kind of goes up here as well, here. And then these ambient light areas up here, just kind of give a few quick little passes, and the closer to the sun rays they are, the more I'll do. And then up here, I probably won't really touch at all because it doesn't really need it. And looking at the sky, this sky has like faint sun rays, like here, 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 and like the clouds are very directional, making it look like the sun rays are kind of following this, just expanding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like a 5% brush, and I'm just going to try to kind of follow the path of these, just to like accentuate them and make them really pop as sun rays. Alright, so let's do before and after. And the before in this image, this was I think a very well shot image because it's got a very good range of lights and darks, has a lot of nice natural contrast just because of what I was kind of shooting, and the layers in this rock really show nice layers. And after, with the dodging, just really adds some depth. But let's say, so before, after, let's say we think we went too far. So for this layer, all we can do is kind of drop the opacity and get it to where we like. Or if you think, you know, it's not enough, like before, after, like I want more, and you don't want to have to re-highlight every single little detail and ridge that you did, just take this layer, do Command J, and that will duplicate everything you just did. And you can actually see the details in these layers from kind of the drawing on we did. But this second layer makes it way too harsh. So I'm going to drop this second layer to say 50%. And now you can see the original before, first dodging, second round of dodging, that's still a little bit much. So let's just drop this to like 20%. And then what I can do is I can highlight both of them and group them. Now I can see the whole before and after, and that really helps. So now after that, to kind of counter it, I'm going to be burning the image. So I'm going to make a new layer, Option, click, Soft Light, fill with Soft Light neutral color. And now I'm going to switch to a black brush, 10% opacity, kind of go lighter with burning. And now every single little dark area I'm just going to accentuate to kind of add some depth in here. And you can be as fine with this as you want, or as sloppy with it as you want. Right now I'm just doing kind of general passes over the darks. Kind of in the really dark areas you can kind of get more, just to really add to that depth. This whole area here, I'm going to kind of gradient into this lighter part. Come back up here. Even in here, get a few passes there and gradient into this kind of orange light coming through. And do a little bit on the darker parts of the clouds just to kind of help that depth. So now let's see before, after, before, after. And now, just to show you the effect of the dodging and burning together, I'm going to do Command-Option-Shift-E to make a merge visible layer. And now we can see the start of our image and the after. So after, it just really provides some nice depth, makes some of the darks really dark, and brings out some more of the ambient light. And we kind of played off of the sun rays that seemed to be there. We just kind of accentuated those. Let's say we wanted to do more. We can make one more layer, soft light, and the white brush at, let's do 20%, and just accentuate these. And I know that these are a bit heavy, so what we're going to do after, take that back, is just drop the opacity. So before, after, it's way too much. So let's just drop the opacity of the entire layer, maybe 50. I'm going to do before, after. And I think that looks pretty natural. Maybe I'll drop it to like 40. So this is kind of a really cool and creative way to kind of just contrast your images and really make them a lot richer than maybe you can with some selective editing in Lightroom or in Photoshop. So I use dodge and burn very frequently for a lot of my images. One last one, we'll do Command-Option-Shift-E for our last merge visible layer, and you can see the difference before and after, before, after. One thing I noticed, and kind of always follow suit, when you dodge with white and black, you're not taking color out of the image, but since you are using restrict white and black, it's just bright and darkening, and it almost takes some of the color out of the image. You can kind of see the before is a little bit more saturated, and then the after is a little bit less saturated. So just kind of to fix that, come to camera raw filter. I'm just going to bring the vibrance up to maybe there, before, after. It's very subtle, just kind of fixes that. So now we can see the before of our image and after. And that's a lot more kind of where our before was, but now we have the added depth and contrast from dodging and burning. Alright guys, so as we went over in the last image, the dodging and burning can add some really awesome depth and contrast to your image, but sometimes when you dodge and burn with white and black, it does kind of dull the image's color slightly. So for this image, I'm going to kind of show you how to paint and dodge and burn with a color. And it's as if you're painting on your image, but really it's just dodging and burning without white. You're doing it with a color. And after that, in this image, we'll go over a technique called light bleeding. So first things first, Command-J to get our background layer. And as you can see, this was, I think it was like a 12-second exposure for my shutter speed. And that's why I have this super, super smooth water. My sensor up here had a little bit of water on it, so that kind of messed up this part a little bit, but I don't think it's horrible. I just wouldn't probably print this photo. But our light source was up in this corner, so it's out of frame, the sun, but you can see it coming in right here, and the light is strongest here, and it comes through all of these trees, and it's hitting spots here all along this kind of hillside, because you can see it peeking through the trees. And even here, some spots you can see ambient light hitting it here. It's hitting some of these logs nicely, and even over here. So I just want to really, really accentuate that. So now, actually delete that layer 1 because we don't need that. Alright, so new layer, come down, put the blending mode to soft light, and fill with soft light neutral color, 50% gray for our dodge and burn layer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this white, and now it has my color picker tool popped up, and I want to pick a color of the light. So let's see right here, that's a good color. Click that, see where it pops up. test a few areas, see kind of where it is. And it all is relatively the same color. So I'm going to use something around here, make it a little bit more green, but we really want the warmth of the yellow to show through. And for this right here, down here is black, and the lower you go, the darker your color will be. Up here is the brighter your color will be. And as far as left and right goes, it's going to be least saturated over here to most saturated over here. So I'm going to do something around there. And I typically, if I'm dodging a photo, will always have it at the top of here. And then if I'm not wanting to get a full dodge effect by brightening the image, then that's where I'll bring it down somewhere in here to get a little bit darker and richer color. But for here, I really want the light to shine through. So click OK. And with our brush 20% opacity, I am just going to start highlighting some of these areas where the light is coming through. And you can be as exact with this as you want, or as sloppy with this as you want. No matter what you do, it will affect how your image comes out. Now sometimes when you are dodging with color, so you might be able to see, images can get saturated very, very quickly because you are painting with color essentially. So that is one thing to be careful of. And since I am doing this at 20% opacity, which is on the higher end for dodging, I am probably going to just drop the opacity of the entire layer. You can see here, since I had a 12-second exposure, there's a little bit of blur from tree movement. I'm not too happy about, but purposes of showing you guys kind of what we're doing, it will do. I'm going to come in here and really get all these areas that the mountainside is getting touched by the light. Just really highlight these, even these little small areas. Every little bit will help. You can see these are getting saturated quickly because when I brighten them up also, it kind of brings out some of the truer colors. But the moss makes it really stand out with this light painting, so I'm actually really happy with where this is coming. You can get some of this stuff in the log if you want. Alright, so let's zoom out. Let's do before and after. So just really, really adds to the photo, but it looks like it was painted on, so that's why I'm going to have to drop this opacity, make it look just a little bit more natural. And I think, about 50% is good. So before and after. So it's just subtle. It just really, really can help an image. And one other thing I'm going to do for this water, perfectly exposed, there's nothing that's clipped, but it's very, very white. And there naturally is some blue tints to some water. So I am going to just kind of dodge this very slightly with kind of a blue-ish brush. And you can see some blue here, and here. Just want to accentuate that. So for this layer, we'll just call that Sunlight Moss Dodge. Make a new layer. everything separate, so if we need to delete anything, it's easier. Call this water dodge. Take my color picker tool, and I'm going to pick right there. See it picked up on those blues. I'm just going to bring it up here. Maybe get a little bit more turquoise in there. And I'm going to do this with only like a 6% brush. And since I'm using such a wide brush, I'm just going to do a general brush over this. Just kind of highlighting all of these rapids. Do one more overall pass. Just to kind of make that water really pop. Let's do a before and an after. So even that subtly, I think really helps and adds a little, just a touch of color to it. So right now I'm going to make a merge visible layer with Command Option Shift E. Turn these off. You're going to see before any dodging and after. Before, after. So it's a really subtle technique, but you can really accomplish a lot with it. The next technique we're going to do is called light bleeding. So if you were in Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw and you grabbed a radial or graduated filter and put it where the light is coming from. So like since it's coming up here, I would put the filter coming this way or a circle filter here and feather it out. And this would make the light kind of shine through your image and really make it look like this sun is just beaming on this photo. But those can kind of look unnatural and you can kind of tell when that happens. So what we're going to do is called light bleeding, and I'm going to pretty much do what we already did, dodge with color, but I'm going to just bleed it in to the entire image. And the effect it can bring is really cool. It does kind of change a lot to the image, but it's a really awesome technique. And when you shoot photos where the sun's just out of frame, like over here, or here, just outside of it, like you can use this light bleed technique all the time. If the sun's in it, can't use it as well, but it's really awesome. So I'm going to do a new dodge burn layer. Oops. And now I'm going to pick the color of our light again. I'm going to do a light saturation like there, maybe. Now I'm going to take a brush with, let's do 8% opacity. I'm going to make this a very big brush. And I'm going to zoom out so I have a lot of working space. And the light is here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to accentuate that, and I'm going to act like I'm making a sun and essentially bleeding light into the photo. So I'm going to make a few circle passes to kind of accentuate sunlight coming through right here. You can see it's coming in nicely, and as you can see on this layer, that is, as you keep passing, it's going to get to the point where the more you pass, like you're not doing anything because it's already hit its full amount of color that you can paint in. So now I'm going to make another dodge burn layer, and this one I'm going to get a little wider with. This is kind of the sun right up here, and now I'm going to just kind of make that get a little bit more of the effect, and then I'm going to zoom in, and now I'm going to spread the light through the photo and just light bleed it. So I'm just going to make directional passes, and this is going to just kind of shine light on the entire photo, and all the ambient light on this moss is really going to be accentuated with this. I'm going to really hit it hard with this side. So that is our light bleed technique, and you can see right there we bled it a lot. And this makes it look like the whole forest is just getting touched by this crazy sunlight. So it actually looks really nice. However, it is too much, and because we went over highlights, shadows, and midtones, it looks very washed out. So I'm going to take these layers, I'm going to group them, and now what we need to do is we need to bring the shadows back to life and it'll bring the photo kind of back to reality rather than a super washed out image. I'm going to layer mask the entire group, and I am going to just kind of brush out all of the shadows. So I'm going to get a very small brush. I'm just going to do, for now, like a 25% brush and see how it looks. I just need to brush back in where the shadows were so they're not washed out. And as you get closer to the sunlight, it's going to be more washed out naturally, so for those areas I'm going to drop my opacity. And you can see in doing this, oops, it's kind of bringing it back to life. Zoom out, and that already looks a ton better. So it's really just the more you want to kind of bring it back. It is a lot of meticulous brushing if you want to really put your time on it, but it does make a difference. So let's look at that. Before, after. It's quite a bit. And just kind of because I think I went a little overall too much, I'm going to take a really big brush, do 5%. I'm just going to like kind of one pass, two pass, just kind of take some of the overall bit out. Just because it is a lot, but I'm going to not really touch this mossy area because I really like how it touched that. So I'm going to look at the before and the after. Before, after, I think it's huge. I think I am going to take this opacity down as well. It's really, really strong. Bring that down to maybe 70. It's kind of just your personal preference on where you like it. I think about there looks really good. So before, after, just brings this really nice natural light essentially bleeding into your photo. So now to make a merge drizzle, Command Option Shift E. Check all of these so we can see the before of the entire image to after. You can see the water changes, the moss and the trees and the light coming in. We definitely did a lot. But now I still think some of the mid-tone shadows up here are slightly washed out. So I'm going to come up to Camera Raw, just kind of help push those up and make those shadows a little bit darker, those highlights up a bit. That's subtle, but just really want to make sure it all follows suit. bring down overall exposure, and I'll probably bring up the white. And one thing I notice is that the light isn't quite as warm and yellow as I want, so I'm just going to bump the saturation of the yellows. Alright, so now we got before and after. I think it is a huge difference, and the dodging and burning helped big time. So even here, before, you can see some of this light is harshly touching it, has some sharp edges, and there's some ambient light coming in here, but not a whole lot. So now, with the dodging, I think overall this hillside looks really, really naturally well lit, opposed to just these sharp kind of highlight and shadows. Like, I think that it's a much better kind of gradient to it. And with the dodging and burning, since you can change your opacity with every single stroke, it's such a game changer.